would you please just explain your background in the beef industry?
Yeah, so I actually got into the beef industry through the aquaculture industry. I got a job in a beef cattle genomics laboratory who were using the same technology that I'd spent the last little while working on fish breeding and genetics with. From there, I spent about the last 15 years bringing different new and novel technologies into beef and dairy cattle industries in Australia and abroad.
Awesome. So, where are you working at now?
So right now, I'm the Chief Operating Officer with a company called Ceres Tag, and Ceres Tag is a comprehensive animal monitoring company. And we've recently launched our first product, a direct-to-satellite smart ear tag for livestock.
Okay, so what is like the foundation of the Ceres Tag company?
We started about 6 years ago when a husband and wife team, David and Melita Smith, returned to their family farm after having spent a number of years working and living abroad. And they realized that the technology on the farm hadn't moved a single iota since they'd been away. So they set about trying to tackle some of the big challenges on the farm and trying to understand how they could do that with technology. And they settled on this idea of remote animal monitoring and precision livestock management and looking for different technologies and IP that can help them do that.
Okay, so what problems were they trying to solve with this technology that they developed?
They were looking at issues in three sort of broad horizons. They were looking at challenges on the farm, and these are really farming efficiency challenges. So, how can we better manage our animals? How can we better use available grazing and pasture lands? And how can we understand our livestock better? They were looking at another horizon which really spanned the entire supply chain. So, why should a device or a technology stop adding value at the farm gate? So, they wanted to understand traceability, food security, food safety, food fraud, issues like this, and ultimately how that story is then communicated at the third and final frontier, which is to the ultimate consumer of that red meat product.
Okay, awesome. So that's really neat to see the traceability aspect all the way to the consumer. So can you talk about a little bit more about the functions of the Ceres tag?
Yeah, so important to note, I think I mentioned earlier, the tag is communicating directly to the satellite. This is a really key feature of this device and makes it a world first. On top of that, the device is using GPS satellites to determine where an animal is located, and it uses an advanced accelerometer to monitor an animal's activity, behavior, changes to behavior, and particularly focused on detecting any distress in the animal. And all of this is then sent back via that direct satellite connection.
So is this like a battery operated tag or how is that? What are the functions there?
So the tag is powered by a battery, but it's a completely sealed unit. So the battery will just continue powering the device and it's completely maintenance free. There's no need to go in and change batteries at any time.
So what would the battery life of the tag be for say?
So we've got a really long battery life. The device will function for up to 10 years, and that's a factor of two different things. One is we use a really unique battery chemistry. So we haven't just settled for an off-the-shelf battery, and we couple that with a small solar panel on the tag that allows the tag to be recharged every day, of course, with the coming and going of the sun, and gives us such a long life of the device.
Okay. So is it fairly easy to implement? When are producers typically putting this in? I know you said you just launched, but what would they be putting it in like after weaning or calving?
Look, you probably want to put it in. I think the ideal time is around weaning, and you're putting it in animals that you're then selecting to either retain or maybe not putting it in animals that are going to be turned off on a short fed program. So you're maximizing the life of the device on the animal and collecting as much information across that animal's life as you can. The tag stays with the animal for its entire life. So even if that animal moves along the supply chain to a backgrounder or to a feeder, it will continue generating data and providing value for its owner.
So you've mentioned there's obviously like the health side of it, and then there's the tracking and animal theft side of it. What do you see it primarily being used for?
the really interesting thing about what the tag is used for is we try really hard to not tell people how to use it, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but we find producers always have a couple of key problems they're trying to solve, and it's different for each and every producer we work with. So rather than tell them how to use it, we tell them what it's capable of, and then they work to develop their own sort of deployment strategy. How many tags do they need? They might not need to tag everything for what they're doing. They may only need to tag a selection of those animals to get the data they need to solve their problems. So it's a very flexible solution.
Okay, so it's collecting all this data. How does the producer access that and put that to use?
So we don't actually provide any end user software at all because we don't see any sort of failure or market failure in that space. There's hundreds of fantastic herd management, animal management, farm management software packages out there, and we're working with as many as possible to have a full data integration with them. So what this should enable is that producers can just continue using the software system they've paid for, learn how to use and are comfortable with, and the Ceres Tag data will just appear right in there alongside their other information like animal weights, and treatments, genetics, and so on.
Okay, what has the response from producers been to this technology?
Producers have been really engaged. I think it does take them a little while to realize it can do almost anything they want it to, but they're going to see the best bang for their buck when they have a plan. So work out the problems you're trying to solve, deploy the tags and gather the data you need, and then most importantly, make the decisions out the other end of that deployment. So you're changing practice and driving your operation forward, not just generating data for data generation's sake. So we really work with people to help them go through that process rather than telling them how to use the tag at the start, really coach them on how to drive change within their own operation.
Okay, so what are some of those key changes you really see it impacting from the ranch management side?
Look, I see it operating in a few key areas. Probably unsurprisingly, one of the big areas we get a lot of inquiry from is theft. So just trying to reduce or stop cattle theft from occurring. It's more of an issue in certain parts of the world than in others, but even in a sort of a well-developed market industry like in Australia, it still costs the industry over $250 million a year in direct stock loss, and that's a highly sort of underreported figure. So there's probably a lot more stock theft going on that people don't detect, or people detect and don't report. So that's a big motivator for a lot of people. Past utilization would be another one. People want to map where their animals are going, maybe develop a heat map of sorts to be able to work out where animals are spending their time grazing or not on their property. And animal health and welfare, people really want to monitor their animals from a distress perspective. So you can't be with your animals 24/7, but to have a device that is, and it's going to send you an alert if something goes wrong, it provides a great deal of peace of mind for the end user.
So is that alert, is that something that would come in on a cell phone?
It does depend a little bit on what software you're using. So as I was mentioning, we work really closely with the end software providers, but one of our minimum requirements is that they can push that alert to you either through an app, a text message, or an email. Works. That alert should be coming through directly, and the alerts come through in real time. So if something's wrong, really.
Okay, so how does this tag compare to other tags? Because EIDs and other technologies like this, there's a lot coming out right now and there's a huge push. So how does yours compare to, say, other ones?
So compared to like an EID tag, this is a massive stepwise change for the industry. But one thing we didn't want to do is we didn't want to come out and just disrupt the industry for disruption's sake. So what we've done is we've built backwards compatibility into the device. So a Ceres tag can come with an RFID, so same as what's inside an EID, built in itself, so that it can even replace one of the other tags on the animal with that sort of identification. In comparison to some of the other sort of monitoring tags, The Ceres Tag technology is truly a world first, and it's one of the easiest and most affordable ways to get into animal monitoring, because you don't have to put up any infrastructure. There's no need for any antennas or towers, base stations or relays. So you're saving sort of tens, or on a very large property, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars of hardware deployment costs. So you can just get a few tags. If you like it, keep using it. If not, you're not out of pocket that much.
Yeah, so how much do these tags cost?
We don't actually sell the tags individually. We sell them in packages. So they come either as a box of 24, that's more economical, or an introductory pack, which includes an applicator and 10 individual tags. With that introductory pack, for less than $2,500 US, you've moved into the world of precision animal management, but you've not made the commitment of putting all that hardware and infrastructure up on your farm that you're going to have to maintain.
Okay. So how does it, or have you been able to see with like even your beta customers, like having it go through the full supply chain? So how has that worked as far as different segments collaborating with each other?
The tag is readily identifiable, and it's marked as a Ceres Tag device. So that if the handshake doesn't essentially occur between someone selling cattle and someone buying cattle, the new owner can clearly recognize what's on the animals. They come to our website, and we then set them up with an account so they can start accessing the data on essentially the new animals with tags that they've recently acquired. So we can hand sort of ownership of the access off as the animal moves along the supply chain. Ultimately, when that animal's processed, you've got this beautiful package of data that's like a golden thread through the animal's life that's been monitoring precisely everywhere it's been in its entire journey and what it experienced on its way.
Okay, so big picture, 10,000-foot view, how do you really see this impacting the beef industry of Australia and on a global scale? Because these are not just in Australia at the moment.
No, we've already sold tags since going live into 10 countries around the world. Again, everyone wants to use it for something different, but we really see it as bringing a level of transparency to the industry. When you're able to acquire an animal and know exactly where it's been and what it's experienced in its life, and the person you on sell that animal to has the same level of transparency, we're hoping it's going to bring a new level of clarity around traceability and provenance, where you're basing it on data. You're not basing it on information that's been recorded by a person against an electronic tag. The electronic tag is actually automating all of that data capture. So whether you're trying to manage a carbon sequestration project in Australia, prevent cattle grazing on deforested Amazonian rainforest, or ensure that your cattle are safe and healthy in South Africa or anywhere else in the world, you can use that single tag and that single system to enter this data and provide it to the people that matter to you in your value chain.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for that. So where can producers go to learn more about this tag?
So you can check us out on our socials, any of the major social media channels. You can check out our YouTube channel, or you can just head to www.cerestag.com, where you can even schedule a time to have a brief video or phone call with someone from the team if you've got some particular questions on your mind.
Well, awesome. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, what other, I mean, you said you worked in the technology space before. So what other ag technologies are you excited about?
Look, at the moment, my background is in genetics and breeding and genomics broadly, but right now I'm really interested in phenomics and devices that are improving the level of automated recording and phenotyping that we're seeing come into the market. So these are advances in walkover weighing and remote weighing solutions, some of the individual feed intake systems, and some of the computer vision solutions that are looking at carcass recording and even estimating retail beef yield on a live animal. I think the more we can automate and improve the accuracy of the data we're collecting, the more it's going to power rapid genetic evaluation systems, and that's just going to drive progress right across the entire industry.
Well, that is exciting to hear. So what, is there anything you'd like to tell producers about adapting to any new technology within the ag industry?
Yeah, I think I'd come back to the eyes wide open type approach. So try and establish, before you even look at technology, try and establish what problems you're trying to solve. Then seek to understand what the technology is capable of, and then work out precisely how you're going to use it, not how other people have used it, not necessarily how the technology provider says to use it. Try and work out how you're going to deploy it in your operation for maximum return on your investment. And it may be very different to what you've seen before.
Well, thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this conversation before we wrap up?
No, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you.